What I'm going to pass out now is taking this construction budget. We have developed a total project budget, and as part of that total project budget, what we have included the cost for is the feasibility study process, the administrative fees for the project, the architecture, engineering, and other project reimbursables, the costs for the construction manager prior to construction, which they've been very instrumental in helping us make sure that we are building a building that is easily constructed. There's no issues in terms of that would bust our budget once we get to construction, because they really looked at it from every aspect. It includes the construction costs, the land acquisition costs, miscellaneous project costs, which are like utility fees, testing, moving, those sorts of things. It also includes all the furnishing and technology that you saw on the plans. And then it includes a 5% construction contingency and roughly a 1% owner's contingency for anything that may have been missed in this process that we've gone through. So I'm going to pass this out and I'm going to talk to you a little bit as I do. What you'll see here is everybody's heard that that this project is 80% funded by the MSBA. And I wanted to explain a little bit about how that process is, because if you just take these numbers and take 80% or 20% of it as the city share, you're going to see that the city share on this sheet of paper is a little bit more than that. And the reason being for that is that the MSBA has decided that the cost per square foot of a building, they will not participate in anything above $275 a square foot. And right now, school construction, from the smallest school to a larger school like this, is averaging $340 a square foot. And that's with a typical foundation, nothing special, certainly not an urban environment like this school is in. So it sort of skews the numbers that the city ends up paying. Because if you take what the MSBA will participate in terms of paying 80% of, and you take that $275 and times it by the $181,847, which is the square foot of the school, you end up with a cost of $50 million for construction, roughly. And I think it's actually $50,007,925, which means that at our construction cost of $67,725,000, that leaves $21,717,000 right off the top. The MSB is not going to participate in, and that it has to be funded 100% by the city. So it's sort of misleading when they say that they will pay 80%. I mean, they just went through a whole cost evaluation, and they made the decision to stay with the $275 a square foot because they were trying to broaden their ability to help other communities. And you're still getting the maximum allowable by the MSBA on any project in the state. It just gets somewhat skewed by the fact that they're only going to participate in $275 a square foot. On this sheet, our total project budget at this point is $87,697,296. The eligible piece of this from the MSBA, which means that it would be their maximum contribution to the project, would be $52,783,982. That additional $2,783,000 is contingencies, And those contingencies are there if we run into unforeseen issues in the project. You may or may not expend those contingencies, or you may choose to spend it on something that the MSBA says it's not, that they won't participate in it because it's not a necessity for the project. So when you look at that and you include the contingencies, the local share is at $34,913,000. That's including contingencies. It's less than that if you don't touch your contingencies, but just to be sure, you need to really anticipate spending your contingencies. At this particular point, we will be able to zero in on how much contingencies that we'll end up having at the end of the project as the design develops. But at this point in time, you should anticipate that share.
I have a question about that. In other projects you've worked on, the contingency budget, how often do they go over that and require more money to finish?
We've never gone over a construction contingency, and it's mainly because cities and towns don't have the extra money. They haven't appropriated the extra money or bonded the extra money, and we really have to be cognizant of that, even at this early stage of the project, that this is the money and there is no more money. And that's the way that the MSBA approaches it as well, is that this is it. There is no extra, and you have to be aware of that from the very beginning and work toward that budget. And if that means that you have to make a value engineering decision as you develop the design in order to stay to that budget, you need to stay to that budget. Because you're already at the max that you'll be able to get from the MSBA, and you will have it at some point bonded X amount of money, and it's, you're going to work to that budget.
Translation, that's between the general and the subs.
Yes. So basically, as we go, that's why we bring Walsh Brothers, the construction manager, on early, so that they're involved from the very beginning and can help us with ways to make this a more constructible building, take care of issues that may cause potential conflicts that could be a change order during construction. So we have them on very early to help mitigate that. During the bid process, they also put together bid scopes to supplement the drawings and the specifications that Gene does, so that we're really trying to cover all of our bases very early on, as opposed to the regular process where the architect goes off, does their plans and specifications, put it out to bid, and then you bid it to a general contractor who's never seen the drawings or plans. The first time is when they're bidding it, and then throughout the whole construction process, you're dealing with, well, we can't really do it this way, or we should, or this is an extra, I didn't know about that. That's why we bring the CM in early. They know everything from the very beginning, so that it helps to mitigate and ensure that we stay within our budget and contingencies.
It's such a great way to do it. Instead of us taking a guess of what we think this costs and then putting it on the street, you might get bids that are higher. So right now, working as a team, everyone's on the same page and everyone knows we've got the scope covered, we've changed the scope if we needed to, and the money's money.
And just during our schematic design process, Walsh is working with several site contractors to try to make sure that logistically we can do it the way we're saying, or having input on balancing the site in terms of soils removal, or import export, those sorts of things that we're thinking about now as opposed to after the project is bid, will help us maintain this budget that we know we can't exceed. So, does anybody else have any questions? Other questions? I just wanted to note that if you take a look at our preferred schematic report and our preliminary design program that we did, the MSBA requires that you look at renovations, repair, maintenance of the existing structure, It requires you to look at different sites. It requires you to look at capacity in other middle schools. We did all of that, and all of that information is available. It's pretty extensive. We have a couple of binders about this thick worth of information. We started by looking at the capacity at the other middle schools. There is none. In fact, they need additional capacity as well. The Marshall Middle School is expanding daily, from what I understand from the superintendent. And we also looked at repair and renovation of the existing. Repairs alone, without addressing any of the educational issues with the Marshall Middle School, was very close, if not exceeding. I can't remember the exact number, but it was at 30, I think it was 38 million actually. The cost just for repairs only of the Marshall School exceeded what the local share shown here is today. And then if you added any sort of renovation to the Marshall School to address a lot of the educational deficiencies, you were up at the cost of new construction. And what MSBA would participate in those types of projects, you may be able to, they do have what they call a repair program, but the reimbursement is far less than what you get here on this new construction. So we looked at all these, and in the end of the day, this was the project that made the most sense for the city of Lynn, and it certainly highlighted the fact that this project is absolutely needed in order to fulfill the needs of the middle school population.
Great job, and thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions on cost? I know I tried to sort of collapse it, but if you see the forms, and any of you can go online and look at them on the MSBA, there's a master spreadsheet that does a lot of formula calculations and everything to derive these numbers. And instead of complicating, it's very complicated, so I tried to collapse it to the main categories. But you're welcome to go online. It's a very formalized process with the MSBA. It basically tells you where you should be at every point on this, and we're right in line with what the MSBA requirements are. We have not exceeded it, in most cases are below what MSBA says in terms of fees and other costs that are listed here. So again, it's under the MSBA website. It's under Building with Us, and there's the schematic design module. You'll see the total project budget spreadsheet if you're interested. And you can kind of see as you plug numbers in, there's a spreadsheet on the side that tells you if you're over or under what the MSBA says you should be at. So in all cases, we are under their maximum requirements or allowable
One
costs.
other question, you mentioned in this discussion value engineering, and I suspect that in some way relates to the contingency. How does that work around the maximum price contract?
We went through a series of value engineering exercises on the 16th when we had a meeting here, and we have reflected a good number of those in the drawings that you see here and in the submission. And that's what kind of helped us reduce the cost for the piles. We reduced the number of the piles by roughly half by increasing the size of the piles. We were able to balance the site in terms of import-export of soils. So that was another value engineering item that we incorporated. The fact that we were able to leave a good number of the foundations in place going with the pile system, that was a huge savings. The fact that we didn't have to replace the culvert was a big saving. We were able to mitigate that. The underground storage tank that we found for the heating oil, how we chose to mitigate that, saved quite a
So
bit of money.
going forward, value engineering is less likely.
Well, no, that's not true. That was the value engineering that we took to get to where we are today. We do have a list of other things. Those were easy things because those are kind of things that people don't see. The other things that we've started another list so that as we move forward in design, if it looks like the pricing isn't quite getting to where we thought we were, we have another list that we have started to develop, but they're harder things to take. I mean, they're more visible, but we do have them in case we need them as we move forward and reevaluate. And MSBA requires us to evaluate at every phase. There'll be a design development, cost estimate, and reconciliation like we just did. There'll be one at 60%, 90%, and then 100% of design of construction documents. So we have another $3 million roughly here that if we have to take them, I mean, our next step is, because we have developed this, our next step is to sit down with our working group again and say, which of these things could you live with if it came to that point?
But a lot of them are things you do if you really were in a bind project-wise, because some of them are, put asphalt sidewalks in instead of concrete. Well, it's a lot, don't use granite curbs, use precast concrete.
They're functional
So the
things and
things that are
longevity
gonna-
things that you might,
You don't do it if you have the choice, because it's a long-term issue, but if you're backed into a corner, you could get, so it's stuff like
That
that.
answers the question, thank you.
anybody else have any other questions?
Just on the rehab and the existing site, I assume that would be in the confines of the existing building. And if you spent the money we would spend on the city share of this to do that, you still may end up with a structure that isn't conducive to 21st century teaching.
If you rehab that building, as Lynn said, there's well over $30 to $40 million worth of just fixing the roof, fixing the
Structural
pipes,
repairs.
well, the brick, all the stuff that's the windows, everything that's falling apart.
Size
So
of
that's-
reinforcing.
And then that building, I mean, we spent a lot of time, the difference between this building, which is gonna be less expensive after reimbursement, and just fixing up that building is which is more expensive because it doesn't get reimbursed as much, it's night and day. I mean,
Plus, the operating costs of this building, even larger, will be comparable to the operating costs of Thurgood Marshall Middle School. Because this is a green building, we're required to build a green building, and just because of the
So
inefficiencies
that
that
could directly
Thurgood-
impact the city budget, even the operating costs.
absolutely. The existing building even has sign steps, which is an excuse, it's crazy. I mean, the music, none of those things, the music, the art, they're just everything.
Okay, someone.
Industrial.
Really substandard condition. So, that's the reason the state has this program, because with the reimbursement, things like this are a better use of money than trying to fix up something that just doesn't even function as a school, as a 21st century school. Physically. Do a great job.
We know.
Can you, I just didn't see it in the design, but
Sure.
how did you address the slope of the street? Have you taken
Oh, the
that-
slope of the street, at each end, when you go to the parking lots, it's kind of at the street level. And then the street has a kind of dips in between. And the front door is almost, not quite, but almost at the low point, So the ends are high and then it dips and the front door is in the middle. So we're gonna have a series, we're gonna have some, they're not even gonna be ramps, they're not gonna have railings, but sloped walks. And then some nice steps that, right at the front door and a couple
From
of
the
retaining
street,
walls.
right.
From the street, oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
There are covered entries at both both areas for students to wait
Excellent.
for being allowed into the building.
Yeah.
I think that Jean did an excellent job listening to all
Yes.
of you and, you know, in terms of the needs of the students and the building itself, so.
No, I noticed that the roofing was extended, which is awesome, because that just will allow kids that are waiting to get in to be sheltered.
Any other questions? And, any of the public have any questions? Anything about the process or how we got to this point today or,
I just had one question, and as far as the funding goes, is it that the city has to put up all of the money and then is reimbursed over time?
what happens is, the city has to, they have to bond the entire amount. However, monthly MSBA reimburses the amount that you spend. I believe that, well, their share.
His share.
Their share.
Sorry.
Right, right, and the rest of that, we wanted to ask them what they've done. It's almost a real-time scenario where as those bills are incurred, apparently they're submitted almost immediately to MSBA for their approval or disapproval. And so that's the reason we're gonna be able to borrow a smaller amount as opposed to when they did classical English and tech and they had to borrow the whole 120 million to do the project. We're only gonna have to borrow our portion that we'll be responsible for.
And what is the estimated impact going to be on the taxpayers? We as elected officials and candidates alike all support this, and it becomes one of our issues as we go forward, trying to sell this to the voters, to go out and support it as well.
Just using a flat rate of 4%, a quick estimate could run about 3.2 million a year in debt service, which will decline each and every year because the interest will be less. Right? And that also corresponds with other debt that's maturing as well. So it's a constantly moving picture.
And that was my other thing, we do have some other debt that's about to expire.
Yeah, you know, there's stuff that's being paid down, if you can believe it, the high school projects will mature in 2018. It's been almost 20 years with those. So, and those are really the larger items on there outside of the police station. So this is just going to flow nicely. We're there winding down this year, just about taking off.
So Rich, will that mean that, as we make our way through Thurgood Marshall, we'll be able to embed Hickory and other schools smoothly?
I suppose.
Well, that's what the people
Yeah.
really wanna know, Rich, that's
You
why
know,
I'm
again,
asking.
there's, the bulk of the debt is gonna be maturing, you know, in the short term, as we can see now, 5 to 8 year window. And if you wanna look at it theoretically, certainly you'll have less debt service, so, you know, can the city absorb that? I guess the answer today, the generic answer is yes. But as you well know, we need to look at things as we go along. It's never a perfect picture. It's never static, and so you really have to evaluate it at that time.
Excuse me, but now you're going to submit bills monthly with reimbursement from MSBA if they're approved. What if they don't approve?
Well, they clearly outlined what is ineligible on their, project budget, and you'll see, I told you what they've said based on their formulas is gonna be ineligible for their reimbursement. The only other things that they would, you know, if it were a bill that somehow got stuck in there that was somewhat project related, but really was a district cost, they're gonna pick that up and kick it out. I mean, it's got to be related to the project, for them to, you know, pay for it. So those are the types of things that you would see. Or if they, like I mentioned earlier before, in the use of contingencies, if the building committee decided to expand something because they had this contingency, MSBA is gonna say, no, we had a project scope and budget agreement in place You chose to use that to add on to the gym, we're not going to reimburse you for that. Those are the kinds of things that they would say that would be ineligible.
But everything that you're planning to submit is going to be reimbursed.
Except for what I have said to you is part of ineligible costs.
My question is, evidently you have to bond enough to cover those potential ineligible reimbursement costs of the school. So it's not just a matter of budgeting, so your overall indebtedness would be greater than what it would be if you were absolutely positive that you were going to be reimbursed the 8%. So it seems to me that you're going to have a larger amount of budget to cover the leeway that you may never touch, because it may always be reimbursed at that rate. But you never know for sure going forward, because things happen that you may have to add something on that's not going to be reimbursed, and you've got to have, you got to have money in your wallet.
Well, this number that you see here does include 6%, 5% for construction, and 1% for owner's contingency. It includes saying we're going to use all of that. And it includes the city's share of that. Would it be prudent to add a little bit of extra money in case there was, yes, but that's up to the district and the city to decide if you want to carry and bond money that we're saying we're not, we're going to manage through the budget.
Yeah.
But it does give you some flexibility if there's unforeseens, I guess.
Well, I guess I just want to know.
We have it built in,
Well,
but if you want more than 6%.
But we've already paid out just over $2 million of the numbers that you're looking at. It's not
Yes.
far. And the city's already incurred the $2 million cost for the land acquisition, the feasibility study. So we've already spent some. We've been on that.
And we're also taking the lowest risk track as far as having a contract on board. So
And
we really,
I just would like a clear amount that we have to bond out. That's all I want. It's just a simple number.
I think we've outlined it here. If the city wants to have more contingency than the 6%, then,
Well, what I'm asking is, are we going to bond out 87 million, 34 million, or what?
I think that the ultimate decision would be to the elected officials, because they're gonna have to sell this to the voters to accept it. You know what I mean? We're obviously looking at a number that's hovering around 35 million, but I think that's a decision that the council, school committee, everybody needs to get together on and decide exactly what that final number is gonna be that they want to buy.
I think we had always said in the vote language that we submitted to the MSBA for their approval, always said 90 million. It may, the city may decide that that's prudent to keep that number, and right now we're projecting a total project budget of 87,697,296.
But you're not getting to my point. How much do we have to bond? Do we have to bond 87 million, or do we have to bond 34 million? That's all I'm gonna know.
Just an estimate would be 35 million.
Okay. And that's what I wanna know.
You approve the total amount, and,
I think that, I think that, you have to approve, this is a matter of semantics, but the MSB has approved language that has the total budget, approximately 90
You
million,
have to
which is,
approve the total.
so we have to approve the total budget, which is approximately, well, 87.6, or approximately 90 million, I believe.
And then you bond your share.
Yes,
Well, the approval for the bond would have to be included in that, because we do have a $4 million cap. So it
Yes.
has to be part of that wording, even though you got a total budget amount, it's gonna have to include the bonded amount. But you have to approve,
Right.
part of that, not just approve the budget.
Okay, any other questions? I just wanna talk a few minutes about schedule. As we said before, we have the schematic design submission going into the NSBA on August 8th. We need to take a vote today if everybody's comfortable moving forward based on what we've outlined here or not. And then I wanna talk a little bit about a couple of the other dates.
So the vote is on the design.
Yes.
on this,
Well, it is the
Part of
design
it.
and then the budget that we're settling.
so it would be appropriate, I think we've had a lot of discussion, certainly everybody said, so it would be appropriate to move, the acceptance of the schematic design proposal as presented forward to NSBA.
So moved.
Second.
So, if there's no further discussion, anybody want to say anything more? We can vote, and we have this. Do we have the, this on the sheet? Mr. Aravino?
Yes.
Mr. Cowdell?
Yes.
Dr. Connor? Dr. Warren?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Callen?
Yes.
Mr. Fortusi?
Yes.
Myself, I vote yes. Are you, you're not voting on this? So, unanimous for members present.
Okay, I sent over some of the letters that have to be signed by,
Yes,
yes, so as long as I can get them prior to, well, sometime early next week.
okay, and one of them is a letter to MSBA saying, describing this vote. So I
Yes.
think that should be fairly simple, that immediately follows, if you can hang on, we can put that together.
And, we have to include all of the meeting minutes in the submission. So I have all of those and I will give you those to post as well this week, so.
Okay. Very good, we can put that on our website.
One other thing, with the city vote, scheduled for September 17th, it was.
We're hoping, it hasn't been actually scheduled yet, I'm going before the city council on August 13th, and we will be attending a meeting on that date, asking the council to put it forward on the ballot.
So I thought that we needed to have everything into the city clerk 6 weeks in advance, or was it 4 weeks in advance?
This is enough time, I've already
Okay.
been in contact with the city clerk. Yes.
That's just what I wanted to check on that. Just a reminder that, the MSBA board action on this would be October 2nd. Prior to that, we will have a project, scope and budget conference with them. It is tentatively scheduled for September 4th, but we'll hear definitively after we make our submission. And that's where we'll go through our analysis of the budget. They'll have done their analysis and, we'll agree on it. At that point, so basically the management of NSBA and us are on the same page when it goes before the NSBA board vote on the 2nd. The rest of the project is, contingent on that October 2nd vote. once there is an October second vote, and I just stuck a date in here for the city council vote on the project funding agreement. We have 120 days to execute that agreement, after it's approved, so I just put the first opportunity, I think, first council meeting afterwards, but I'm sure it'll probably take a little bit longer than that. And then, as soon as we get approval, we'll be ready to go with the design development and anticipating, early bidding of some of the early site work packages, in the spring of 2014 with, construction start that summer of 2014 with, full bidding in the fall of 2014 and construction starting at that point and being ready for school opening on the September 2016. So that's our current schedule, if anybody has anything to add or comment on any of these dates, so that, other than what I would say. The other, what we wanted to talk about is, did everybody sign in? If you would, please, I would appreciate it before you leave. Just so we have it. Any update on flyers and,
Yep, we've been working,
meetings?
we've been working on a flyer. It's a little premature yet because, the city council hasn't officially taken a vote to put it on the ballot on September 17th. So, we've been working with Grant Communication to get, one going. It's not final, we've made a few changes in it, but this is the latest iteration, based on, quite a bit of material you gave us as well. So, yeah, we're working on that. As soon as, the city council approves the vote, we're looking to be on, cable television and, doing some visitation, so as much as we can prior to, September 17th vote.
Good. The more people know, the better.
That's right.
Okay, do we want to schedule a meeting of the working group, later this week to review this list of BE we have in our pocket?
Yes.
And to see what, we might want to present to as part of our schematic design, submission?
That would be great. I would like that a lot. So, as long as, so the submission, when are you folks available?
I can make myself, I think it's important, so, I'll have to use it.
I'm busy on first, tomorrow? Is there any chance of tomorrow?
Tomorrow afternoon?
Yep.
Okay, what time? I probably, 1 o'clock or after?
Okay.
1 o'clock?
So this
Or
would be
maybe,
the,
how about 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock, is that good?
Fine.
Yep. Oh, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. I'm using a pencil, it's all right. So we'll try for 1
I'll send
o'clock
out yeah.
tomorrow, and, I'll check on this room availability, but, so this will be just the working group. Yes.
I'll send out a, notification.
Okay.
And that should wrap up, everything we need to do for the submission. Any other things we could do? Okay, any other business you wanna talk about?
A very nice presentation, thank you very much, that's quite a submission there. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So
So
we'll have a hiatus on our, building committee meetings and stuff for a little while, probably till September, till we have, right before our project scope and budget agreement.
So,
Move to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, seconded, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.